but as a coach, one of the things that has always struck me as being absolutely central to an athlete's success is saddle
Yeah.
seat.
Yeah.
And it can really butcher everything. And I mean that both metaphorically in position and fit and aerodynamics, as well as actually physically. Or it can be the gateway of happy, happy, joy, joy.
Yeah.
Can you talk about why that is so important? Some of the things for the listener to know.
Yeah, I concur, and oftentimes I think if it's the thing that I often say to the athletes I work with, look, saddles can be one of the most frustrating things to work on. It can be one of the most challenging from spending money, but it is 100% the vital thing that has to get locked down. Your saddle sets the tone for everything else that happens upstream and downstream. So if you're not sitting on the saddle correctly, if you're not comfortable on the saddle, if the saddle can't create good posture, um, everything else is just a compromise, and you're going to be kind of chasing your tail during that whole journey. The reason, especially for triathletes, because you're grounded on such a smaller area of the pelvis. And so pelvic stability is everything. And when you can't ride well, I would dovetail it and say too that we also have to remember that probably a good 40 to 50% of issues with saddles are simply because of saddle height being wrong.
Yeah.
Like my protocol almost always is, look, let's give this saddle a fighting chance. Let's put it in a position where at least you have the chance to ride it correctly. There are some bad saddles, but like generally most saddles, as we look at them, they're only going to change in so many different ways. But if a saddle is 20 mil too high, it's up into you and it's going to create all sorts of issues. One of the things that's fascinating about the new tech that I'm using, and I think it's a bit of a game changer, saddle pressure mapping enables me to see the propensity for so many athletes to sit off to the side, to have pelvic instability, to have, if you look at a saddle and you look at a pelvis and you line those two things up, in a perfect world, everything is straight. The minute you rotate something, you go, oh, that's going to be a hot spot.
Yep.
Oh, that's not going to be comfortable. Gosh, that knee extension is going to be different on one side. Boy, that low left back is really going to be more strained. I can't tell you what a game changer that's been for me using this new system, because I'm able to see much deeper into the importance of saddle. I think before it was just like finding a good saddle. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's got to be a 7 or an 8. Like that's it has to be that. But there's also an ability to use technology to see where somebody is centered on the saddle, how somebody is working through, where is the max pressure, what side is it on? Are they nursing something that's there? A recent thing is how many people are sitting 3 centimeters off to one side and then their head, they're neutral.
So I saw that in action
Yeah.
yesterday, actually, and I couldn't believe it. With my athlete that I'm coaching, Ryan, where he sat on and you showed the pressure mapping,
Yeah.
and I mean, and he was like, "Yep, that's where it hurts."
Yeah.
And then you could actually see his course correction that he was doing, where he's absolutely leaning off and sitting off to the side.
Yeah.
And so it's actually pretty incredible, the unlock there. And then the other thing is the quantifiable change that you can see when you shift. And I think with him, you shifted you actually changed the saddle
We
out.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because but I gave it a shot, right? I wanted to make sure that, hey, at the right height, and it's a brand, to be fair, it's probably one of the biggest brands that when you read the story of the saddle and what it's able to do, the adjustability of it, we'll probably talk about this a little later, but there's a lot of this kind of happening in the industry. It reads amazing. Like, how could you not like this? And yet the reality is like, it's not great. And I think that's one of the tricky spots that athletes have to navigate, is there's an ability to really touch all those key points that the athlete is asking. I feel like my saddle's too wide, so if I give you something that's adjustable, boy, there's the cure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. It's still a deeper thing. And his thing, like, again, was like, I didn't know this was possible.
Yeah, that's it. I've got two more questions for you.
Please.
This one's pretty quick, but I can't help but ask this one because this is something that has actually evolved because of the evolution in bike tires. So there's now obviously tubeless, and you go from there, and used to be sew ups or it was clean
tubular
versus tubeless, and then also width of tire, everything like that. So tire pressure, people always ask that, and so how can you give people a little bit of empowerment on how much pressure they should put in their tires for racing, and maybe just go into conditions a little bit as well?
Yeah, definitely a different world now, than what we all started with, and it takes time. Suddenly, even myself, I'm running a 32C tire at 75 psi. Back in the day, a 23C tire, I might have it 115 or 120, maybe higher on a big event or a big climb. What we're realizing is that, and I think we now have data and technology to be able to show this, higher tire pressures don't equate to faster. And in fact, oftentimes it's the opposite. When a tire gets so rigid and it loses all of its pliability, it actually starts to skip over the road. And every time it skips, it creates friction, and that friction slows us. So again, mentally, we like the idea of like, oh, that's really good. But if we kind of think about other things, like we buzz along the highway at 85 or 90 miles an hour, in car tires that are at 48 psi, 45 psi. Granted, wider and a lot more rubber, but the general consensus is that if you tried to ride those at 100 psi, you couldn't stay on the road, and it certainly wouldn't be enjoyable, and you'd be blowing out all the struts and everything on the car. The thing that is important is there is context, and the multiple pieces are the width of the tire, the interior diameter of the rim, and how those things kind of go together. There's two excellent websites. There's Silka has a great tire pressure gauge map, which is excellent, and SRAM and Zip have one as well.
Mm.
There'll be some little nuance between them. I usually try to have my athletes work through both and find what they find more appealing. But generally, the rule is, clients are still probably putting too much pressure in their tires.
And is it should athletes, whatever the correct size is, let's make it up, it's 70 psi, give or take. Is it still the case that you should put a little bit more pressure in the rear tire because that's where the weight is, or do you have them both even?
I would tend to keep them both even. If you did that, it would be only in a road bike context, because the reality is in better triathlon positions, probably, yeah, you're
Okay.
even.
Okay, and how about the old? I'm bringing out all of the old.
I love it. Yeah.
Like how about in rainy conditions? You want to have a little bit less,
A little bit less for sure.
a little
Yeah.
bit less.
Yeah.
That's about
But
10 psi or
yeah, I
five,
would say about 8.
8.
Seven,
There you
8,
go,
7, 8 psi.
5 to 10 is
Yeah.
what I'm going to go with. So
Yeah.
it's
5 to
great.
10.
What about here's my final question: is when's it right for an athlete to get a fit? If someone wants to work with you, if someone wants to do some consulting with you, someone wants to get fit,
Yeah.
when's the right time for that?
Yeah, I think this has been an evolution point for me, and I think, as I've talked with other people in the center here, um, I think anytime an athlete is about to embark on a training program, a training load, an event, I think I would rather see that person sooner. Because if I see them when the house is on fire and they're having a saddle sore, or they're having a leg length issue, or something else is, well, now we have to manage that. And I think there is something to be said, particularly in your community, in the Purple Patch community that we work within. We know these athletes are going to do the work,
Mhm.
and I equate it to almost like, hey, I'm about to embark on this big trip. I'm going to get a physical, or I'm about to drive across the country. What would you do? You take your car in to get it looked at so that a hose doesn't blow. And I think Bike Fit can act as a bit of a, hey, let's make sure everything is good, rather than you getting 6 months in, hitting the throttle, everything's falling apart. And now, yes, we're going to come in and fix
An
things.
act of desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, and I know this because you and I live this with our athletes, it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
All the athlete wants to do is train. All I want to do is get better. I don't want to be down for 2 weeks. I don't want to be out. I don't want to manage this. I don't want to have to go to another appointment. And so I think if we can preemptively do a little bit of that. So I'm more bullish on, like, I think there's always a good time. The thing that I'm trying to change in my own business and my own fitting protocol is, like, I've purposely made my fitting appointments less expensive to make them more approachable to people, but yet added more technology, cooler features, in an attempt to try to make it feel to them more like going to see their chiro or their PT.
Yeah.
All of us know it's a continual check-in. You don't just go when your back is bad and then your back is fine and everything is fixed. I think our athletes are evolving, they're changing, and Bike Fit can. I mean, how many times this week did I find something, either how an athlete was sitting off? I found a saddle that was 3 centimeters off to one side. So if we find those things sooner, then we don't have that erosion.
I would add one more perspective as well, because I think that there is common behavior, understandable behavior of I go and buy my bike, now I'm going to get it fit. And one of the things I've learned, and it is the first thing that I say to any one of my athletes, another time to get a fit for me as the coach is when you're going to make a change.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy a new piece of equipment and then have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's like equipment's really expensive, and that means it can be expensive mistakes. Get the right thing for you, not the right thing for Lionel or for Lucy or anyone else.
Yeah.
The second thing is, particularly if you're going to go and make a bike purchase, I mean, you can source, build, purchase bikes for people all the way through the process. But more than that, you can give people the right direction as well,
Yeah.
and say, hey, when you go into your bike shop, these are 3 bikes that are great, that will fit you, and this is probably the width of bike, so that you're then not, I've bought it, look at it, it's pretty, can you fit it to me?
Yeah. That's
And
it's a core value of mine to I imagine a client may come into me and say, hey, Chris, I ride 54 centimeter bikes. I want them to leave saying, actually, here's a saddle height range that works really well for me. Here's a saddle to bar drop that I know I do well in. Here's a handlebar width that I've tested and I know works well. That's an elevated consumer. That's an elevated athlete. And that is somebody very different than I like chicken,
yeah,
right? I don't know. I like this kind of chicken with this kind of sauce prepared this way on a grill at this heat. Like, and to me, that's important. And I don't think that that is being served well. And to me, that's more fun for me to have in that space.
Yeah.
If I can help people, it's great.